I think I speak on behalf of everyone when I say, thank God this year is coming to an end. Hello everybody, it's Katie here, and 2022 is finally coming to an end. So as always, I'm going to give you a recap on my bookish year and what a year it has been. We're going to ignore the fact that the world has gone to even more absolute shit in 2022 because you don't need me to tell you that. We're all living it. So I am just going to discuss books. As always, I will give a little recap of the year in general. If you would rather just skip to the list of my favourite books, then I will leave a timestamp down in the description so that you don't have to listen to me waffle on about things. But first I do just want to talk about the year in general. So in terms of making book content for my channel and for my blog, I definitely didn't hit the goals that I was hoping to. I wanted to make more regular content, but it hasn't happened. I think I was off to a good start. I got plenty of videos done in the first half of the year, and then things kind of just slowed down in the second half of the year. But to be honest, I was expecting that a little bit because the final few months of the year kind of bring back bad memories for me now. So it's always a bit of a weird time. However, in terms of bookish things in general, I am incredibly proud of the things I managed to achieve this year. So first of all, 2022 was the year in which I returned to book events. I always love going to author talks and book signings, but since the pandemic started in 2020, I haven't been to any until this year. And I was super nervous about going back to these things because, as with everything, my anxiety holds me back a lot. And the only reason that I was able to go to events pre-2020 was because I pushed myself to going to quite a few, so I got to a point where I was comfortable attending them. But with having that 2 years of nothingness, I was pretty scared to go back to them again. So the first event was back in May when Simon James Green came to my local bookstore, and I finally got the chance to meet him after years of adoring his stories. So I was pretty nervous to go back to an event for the first time, but it was actually the most chill and informal book event I've ever been to, and I'm so grateful for that. It was basically just a casual chat and book signing, so I felt relaxed enough to talk and ask questions, and I'm just so happy that I got that opportunity, and I think it really eased me back into bookish events. So then in July, Cassandra Clare did a mini tour for The Last Hours, and she actually came to Chester, which is one of my closest cities. So of course I just had to go. She is one of my all-time favourite authors, so the fact that she was coming so close to me, I had to go. This event was a lot bigger because it was held at an actual theatre. It was my first time going to a venue like this since COVID started, so I was shitting my pants a little, but everyone was really friendly and it ended up being just a really great day. I got to meet her and take a picture as well. I got a special edition of Chain of Gold which was signed, so I'm really glad that I was able to do that. And then rounding off the year of restarting bookish events, in November, Alice Oseman did 2 tour stops, and one of them was in Manchester. You don't need me to tell you how much I love Alice Oseman. I love their stories so much. I have always wanted to see Alice in person, but they tend to do book events more down south, and it's very difficult for me to get down there with money and accommodation and stuff, so yeah. But when I found out they were coming to Manchester, I had to go. I had to. So my sister managed to book us tickets as an early Christmas present. And again, this was something that was held in a theatre, and I knew it was going to be fully sold out because obviously Heartstopper went nuts this year. So again, I was terrified, but we ended up in the queue with some absolutely incredible fellow fans who were just the loveliest people ever, and it ended up being such a wholesome experience. The event itself is amazing. I've got a write-up of it on my blog, so I'll post a link to that in the description if you want to check that out. I had the best time, and I finally got to see Alice in person. They also signed some books at Queer Lit in Manchester, and that's one of my absolute favourite bookshops. I travel to Manchester a few times a year just to go there. So we popped in on the day to buy some books, and the staff member did tell us that they were hoping Alice would drop by and sign some books later on in the day. So before we went to the theatre for the event, we went back to the shop to see if there were any signed copies, and he told us that there were. So I managed to pick up a signed copy of my favourite Heartstopper volume, which is the third one, the one that we're going to see come to life on screen in the next year. So that just topped off what was already an amazing day. So it went from 2 years of nothingness to 3 major events of me finally seeing some of my all-time favourite authors within 1 year. It's kind of a whirlwind. I can't believe those events happened, but I'm so thankful that they did. Another thing that I'm incredibly proud of this year is the fact that I got to do a Heartstopper window display. So art is something that I've been taking more seriously over the past year. My dad was an incredibly talented artist, so art's always been a part of my life, and after he passed away, art became something that helped me remain close to him. So I made a promise to myself to take it more seriously, and I've definitely done that this year. I've been exploring fabric painting and stamp carving so that I can make prints. I've been working hard on digital art, and then when Heartstopper aired, my local bookstore, Bear Hunt Books, asked me if I'd be interested in painting a window display, and I've never done anything on that scale before, so I was really terrified, but I knew that it was something that my dad would have loved because he painted murals and displays when he was younger, and so I knew I just had to give it a try. And so I painted a window display for the first time, and I'm honestly so proud of how it turned out. I'm so grateful to the shop for giving me that opportunity. They are my absolute favourite bookshop. I'd be lost without having that space so close to home. So to be able to make some artwork for the window was just an amazing experience. And I had people tell me that they loved it and they wanted to take a picture of it, and it was just such an insane time. And since then I have done 2 other displays for the shop as well. I got to paint something for Simon James Green when he visited, which was great because I got to see his reaction to it as well. And I got to paint a display for Thomas Taylor when he visited the shop as well. It's just something that I never believed I'd be able to do, but through that I've discovered that I really enjoy doing window displays, even though they are challenging, and it's something that I'd love to do more of. So I'm really proud of myself for doing that this year. So let's talk books in 2022. I hit my reading goal again for the 2nd year in a row now. I only made a small goal for myself. It was 30 books, and I'm proud that I was able to hit it. I actually did go over it, but I'm not sure exactly how much by because I haven't updated my Goodreads yet. But I know I'm over 30, so yay! It was incredibly hard to narrow down my favourite books of this year. I've been quite picky with what I've read this year, which has meant that I've loved most of the things that I've read. So yeah, lots of new favourites. I've narrowed it down to 7 because if it was 10 then I'd waffle on for too long. So starting off the list at 7 is something that I read right at the start of the year, and it is The Charm Offensive. I love this book so much. I think the thing that really stuck out to me the most about this book is how it describes anxiety and depression. It was done in a very realistic way, but whilst it did touch on those topics, it was also just a hilarious rom-com as well. It ticked a lot of boxes for tropes that I love, including practice dates, practice kissing, you know, and the characters were adorable. It's full of diversity, and it's just a nice book. In at number 6 we have Self-Made Boys, and this is a queer retelling of The Great Gatsby. I didn't realise how much I needed this book in my life until it appeared. I mean, you sit there and you tell me queer Gatsby retelling, and obviously I am going to eat that shit up. It reimagined the story in such a gorgeous way while still capturing that magic of the original story, and now I need to go in search of other queer retellings of classic books. Yeah. So number 5 is The Many Half-Lived Lives of Sam Sylvester. This is one that I've spoken about before on the channel, but it's a book that's full of everything. It has mystery, a friendship group that is basically found family, a gorgeous romance. Even though it's not fantasy, it feels like it has elements of fantasy. There's almost a ghostly aspect to the book. It has autistic, non-binary rep. It's just such a good book. I honestly could not put it down when I was reading it. It genuinely just covers so many genres that I think it's one that anyone could pick up, really. So yeah, I'm very glad that I got the opportunity to review this one because it's now one of my faves. Number 4 is It Goes Like This. I do not see this book getting the love and hype that it deserves. So if I have a mission in this video, it's to make you pick up this book. This is another one that I've spoken about before, so I won't go into too much detail, but it is a story about a band, and we all know that I love band books, but the industry seems quite overrun with boy band books specifically. This one is a queer girl group, and oh my god, it was everything I needed and more. Every single one of these characters is just so interesting and different, so they each give a different perspective on the story, and it's the perfect mix of friendship and romance as well. It's easily one of my favourite band books now. I originally discovered it because I was looking at a list of pansexual rep books, and I found this on there, and then when I found out it was about a band, I just had to buy it, and it ended up being a favourite. I'm so happy I finally have a good girl band book to go with all the boy band books on my shelf. So let's head into the top 3, and of course there's a graphic novel in here somewhere, and it is Fence, the 5th volume of Fence. I feel like I've been waiting for this for a lifetime. It finally came out this year. It was everything that I wanted it to be. The ending is just... I need the next volume right now. Right now, please. I'm going insane. The only thing that I have a little issue with about this, despite the fact that it is my 3rd favourite story of the year, is that the graphic novels seem to exist separately to the side novels that Sarah Rees Brennan wrote for the series. They kind of exist in an AU, I think, which most people seem to be happy about because the general consensus in the fandom is that people don't really like the novels as much. But I absolutely adore the 2 novels. I'm not saying I love them more than the graphic novels, I love them all the same, but the novels to me gave a much bigger personality to the characters and helped us get a further glimpse into their lives rather than just seeing the action of Fence. And 2 of my favourite characters in the series are Aiden and Harvard, and the books revolve heavily around them. So I'm kind of sad that the developments they make in the novels aren't really shown in the graphic novel, because I feel like I lived a lifetime with them and we went through so much together. And then there's just no evidence of that in this. And I'm kind of sad that they're not the same thing. But other than that, this is perfect. And I love this series and these characters so much. So on to number 2, my 2nd favourite book of the year. And it is Summer Sons. I have such a complicated relationship with this book. I know I touched upon this slightly in my Halloween Rex video, and I definitely need to do more of an in-depth discussion video about this, but just to remind you, I hated this book at first. Like, I really hated it. It was recommended by lots of people whose bookish opinions I trust, so I went in with high hopes, and then the first quarter of the book, I hated it. I hated the characters. I hated how slow the novel was. I hated that I was confused. I hated that there was so much casual drug use and ridiculous parties that just didn't make sense, and I could not connect to it at all, and so I put it down. But I am a very stubborn reader, and I always see a book through even if I hate it. It's something about myself that I don't really like, because, you know, I waste time finishing books that I don't enjoy just because I have to read the end. So rather than putting this on the shelf and never going back to it, I just put it down for a while. I read some of the books, and then I went back to it maybe a month later, and the weirdest thing, I actually enjoyed it. I don't know what happened in that gap. I think maybe because I knew what I was going back to this time. I knew that the characters were a mess. I knew that the story was all over the place. I knew that it had vibes of something that wasn't normally for me. So I had no expectations when I went back, and for some reason I just suddenly loved it, and the more that I read, the more I loved the story and the characters, and I don't really know what happened because I've never had that sort of relationship with a book before. We are the enemies to lovers trope, and now it's my second favourite book of the year. I don't know what this book did to me. So for number one, I have completely cheated. I have 2 books as my favourite book of the year. In all of my years on BookTube and book blogging, I have always been able to choose a favourite. No matter how hard it has been, there has always been one clear favourite. I have never wussed out and merged 2 together before, but the year is 2022. The world is a mess. I don't think it matters if I pick 2 books as my favourite book of the year. So here we are. So the reason why I've picked 2 is because one was published this year, so it's my favourite book of 2022. The other one wasn't published this year, but I read it this year, and it's now one of my favourite books of all time, so I couldn't not have it in the number 1 top spot. So that's why I have 2. So the first one is Gay Club by Simon James Green. Absolutely no one is surprised that I have Simon's book in the top spot because he is a genius and I love everything that he writes. This book just has everything that I ever want in a YA book. It's funny, it has fantastic characters, it has hilarious wild moments, it has unpredictability. Literally, I had no idea what was going to happen next in this book. Even when it comes to the love interest, I thought we were heading towards a certain direction, and then we just get a moment of whiplash where we realise that it's not what we thought it was and it's going a different direction, and it has some of my favourite characters that Simon's created. I adore this book and I think everyone needs to read it. And so my other favourite book of 2022 is Sorcery of Thorns. So earlier on in the year, I told you guys that I had picked this up purely because somebody said it had the same vibes as Howl's Moving Castle, which is one of my favourite stories of all time. So without even properly reading the blurb, I got this book, trusting that one person on Reddit. It turned out to be the best decision I made all year. This book is just so special. It is exactly the type of book that I love. It's a fantasy that has slightly steampunk vibes. It has romance in it, but that doesn't overwhelm the story. It's the type of book that, like Howl's Moving Castle, can be read by anyone of any age. Maybe not kids. I don't think kids would understand what's going on. But from like YA up, it revolves around books and sorcery and demons, and it's just incredible. And I am so thankful to that random internet user who name dropped this book because it's now my entire personality. When I found out a few months ago that there was going to be a novella sequel, I shit my pants. I ended up getting approved for the proof on NetGalley. I originally applied for it on Edelweiss and I got rejected and I was absolutely devastated. But then when it was on NetGalley, I applied for it there and I got accepted, and I've just finished reading that, and that'll be in my list for 2023. I'm obsessed with this world and these characters and just everything about this story, and I love it so much that I had to cheat and put 2 books as my favourite book of the year. So there we have it. They were my favourite books from 2022. I'm really happy that this year I went looking for specific books that I really want to read. I went looking for pan rep, I went looking for autistic rep, and I ended up finding some of my new favourite books through that. So I'm really happy with my reading this year. As always, please do let me know what your favourite books of the year have been. Do you have a least favourite book of the year? I do. I'm not going to talk about it yet because I definitely have a video planned for that. I think it could divide opinion because it's a book that's very, very loved by a lot of people. It's If We Were Villains. I hated it. So please do let me know all of your bookish thoughts from the year, and also what you're looking forward to in 2023. Seemingly everything is happening in January. The Stolen Heir is coming out, Chain of Thorns is coming out, and I'm going to see Leigh Bardugo on her Hellbent tour. So much going on. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful new year because it's what you deserve. I will see you next time. Bye!